And we're going to kick things off with a bundle that's designed to help you mix your songs, particularly if you're a metal player. And this is something that you worked on, right, Doug?
Yes.
Yeah, let's check out the video.
If you spend a lot of time in the studio tracking metal, there is a lot to love about Toontrack's EZmix 2 metal bundle. At the heart of this bundle is a plugin called EZmix 2, and you load an instance of that, and from inside there you load different presets. And these presets are created for a huge range of instruments as well as mastering and stereo bus. The presets have been created by some of the top names in the business, and they represent a range of things already preset in a signal chain, so you don't really have to tweak them to use them. That's actually one of the great things about this, is it has a very fast workflow. It's also easy to kind of check different sounds as you're going through there, so you can find what you're looking for efficiently. Speaking of efficiency, this thing is not a resource hog. I had literally 8 different instances. In other words, you load the plugin 8 different times, all up and running in Pro Tools, and had 0 issues with resources. And if you've had a lot of plugins going at the same time, you know what has a tendency to happen is your computer comes to a grinding halt. In terms of a production workflow, this stuff is awesome. All right, now one of the other things you want to know is that literally kind of these presets really encompass the entire workflow, from the instrument level to the stereo bus level to mastering. They are really efficient and they sound great. For the first demo, you're actually going to hear 3 different instances of amp modeling, 3 different amp models actually. And one of the things I love about this is being able to stack sounds and really get some massive guitar tones. The drum sounds you're going to hear are from the EZdrummer drum kit from hell, which is not part of this bundle, but again is also part of a great workflow, especially for doing metal. Let's check it out. So the second demo just uses 2 amp models, and they come from the Dirt Pack. And I pulled up the first sound as I was just auditioning different sounds. Then I pulled up the second sound and I went, those are going to go great together. And that's one of the things about having a workflow like this, is it's super easy to go through the sounds, load them, get to the next sound fast enough so you can still remember what the other sound sounded like. All right, let's check it out. So for this last demo, I'm utilizing a lead tone that was put together by Devin Townsend, and it is one of the best lead tones I've heard in a really long time. Just lots of great nuance, touch sensitivity, and great sustain. For more information about the Toontrack EZmix 2 Metal Bundle, please visit Sweetwater, Premier Guitar, or GearTunes.com. Cheers.
Looked like you had a lot of fun there.
You know, the thing about guitar is that it's so connected to your heart and your soul, and you just sometimes have everything that's completely inside you be completely naked come out. And it's a very strange thing about having a video camera capturing some really intimate moments, but it's also really the great thing that I love most about what I do is that I feel like I'm really connecting with people in a moment that for me is very special and, again, very intimate. So that last little piece there for me was one of the funnest things I got a chance to do related to this. So thanks for the opportunity. It's been really cool.
How'd you rank the ease of use for this particular package?
I am basically virtually everything that I do for hire as a professional demonstrator uses some Toontrack product. So basically it was just like, it was opening a treasure chest of new sounds, and it's literally just kind of plug and play. And one of the key things is you can just sample different sounds so easily, and when you sample sounds, it just inspires you to get different things. And again, gateway to new tone, which means gateway to new creative expression.
For someone who's not necessarily familiar with the Toontrack process, is it something where this would still provide an easy or relatively easy entry point?
The great thing about it is a brilliantly easy entry point, and it's kind of like, it's like GarageBand, but on steroids, where it's really kind of like I'm pulling up some different models, I'm pulling up some different processing, but the quality and the ability to get in and tweak a little bit. But these are sounds that have been put together by the world's top metal people. And there's a reason a bunch of the top metal players use this stuff, because it's that good. But it is that easy to use, and that's why they can do it on a tour bus. They don't need a big fancy computer.
I'm thinking, again, guys are going to be able to go ahead and immediately feel comfortable with this and start, as you said, getting in touch with their muse or getting naked in the studio.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Something like that, yes.
Our little secret.
So, what do we got next?
Next, I believe we have Mitch Gallagher talking about a new PRS amp that made its debut at the NAMM show. Mitch?
Since we're in a metal groove here, let's talk about the PRS Archon amplifier. Now, this is a new amplifier that was introduced at Winter NAMM, and it's a high-gain amplifier that addresses a problem that many other high-gain amplifiers have, and that's that many high-gain amplifiers just don't have a great-sounding clean channel. So when PRS was designing this amp, they really went to extra effort to make sure that they had a nice, sparkling, clean sound that you could draw on that was going to be equally good as the high-gain sounds that they're playing through. And this amplifier is also loaded with great features to make it wonderful for studio and stage. But let me switch over and show you a little bit of what's happening with the clean tone. It's a really nice sparkling sound, draws a lot of dynamics out of the guitar as you're playing through it. You can hear all the note articulations very nicely. So it's a really stellar clean tone that's matched up with that higher gain tone that you heard earlier. Now let's talk about some of the features on this amp. Around the back panel, we've got an effects loop, so you can use your post effects in there. Your delays, your reverbs come after the preamp, so you get the right thing happening there with those effects. And we've also got that, and by the way, that effects loop is switchable using the foot pedal, so you can bring those effects in and out. But a cool feature on the back is this amplifier is powered by four 6L6 power tubes. We've got a switch that takes that down to 2 power tubes, so we can go from 100 watts to 50 watts if you're working in a smaller venue. But even better than that, all of the bias points are available right on the back panel, so you don't have to open the amp up. You change your tubes, you can do all the biasing right there without having to dig inside the amp. That's a very cool feature. Now we've got 2 channels on the front panel of this. We've got a clean channel and a dirty channel. Both those channels controls are identical. We've got bass, mid, treble controls, we've got a gain control, and then we've got the master volume for each one, so you can match the volume levels as you're going from clean to dirty. You've heard the clean sound there, and of course we can adjust that brighter, darker using the tone controls. We have a lot of flexibility for doing that. When we switch over to the gain channel, I've basically got everything on both channels set to straight up to high noon, and but we have a lot of control over shaping things. If we bring the gain back to about, well, we'll put it at about 7 o'clock. Still a lot of gain there. This is a high gain amplifier, but it'll clean up with your toucher when you roll back the volume control. What I like is that the amp is dynamic. A lot of times when you play a high gain amplifier, it's so compressed that you really can't draw back with your picking hand or with the volume knob. You can't clean up that way. But with this, you really can. And then as you roll back up, you get that full distortion again, but it's not super compressed at this point because we're set fairly low on the gain dial. Let's wick it up to about 25%. Now that's a great crunchy lead tone, a nice high gain lead tone, and that is a nice crunchy rhythm tone, but you can still use that for your lead tone as well. It's a singing sound, and if you stepped on an overdrive in front of that, it would really jump that up and make it sing. Let's bring the gain up to about 50%. At this point, we've got plenty of gain for jumping out with pick harmonics. We've still got a lot of nice touch, a lot of articulation. You can still hear the notes in chords. We'll roll it up to 75%. That's a very easy tone to play. It's very liquid under your fingers. There's tons and tons of sustain. What I like about the amp, though, is it's not a shrill fuzziness. There's a warmth, there's a roundness to that tone that really speaks well. We'll turn the gain all the way up. That is a sound that is so easy to play. The guitar just feels alive in your hands because there's so much gain coming from the amplifier. Just the right amount of compression. It doesn't feel like it's getting small. You're not losing that articulation. Really a nice tone. Now the cool thing here is that we've still got tight bottom end. Part of the reason for that is that we have a very unique control on this amplifier called the depth control. And that works on both channels. Now the way the depth control works is it kind of works as if you were going from a single 12 combo to a 4x12 combo. I've got it at 50% right now. Let me turn it all the way down. So you can hear that really drops that bottom end back, sort of like you're playing through a 1x12 combo. Still nice and tight though. I'll put it back at 50%. Chunky bottom end there, plenty of bottom end for those thumping rhythm sounds, and it gives you a nice fat tone when you're playing leads. We'll turn the depth all the way up. There's a lot of bottom end there. It's really shaking my pants legs as I'm playing here, but it's still nice and tight. And we've got full gain going on there, so there's a ton of distortion as well. So even with all that distortion, that bottom end is still nice and chunky and still well under control. This amplifier is great for no matter what style of metal you're playing, whether you're playing more hard rock, you're playing death metal, whatever it is, you can dial in those tones there. Then step on the switch, go over to that clean tone, and you've got an ultimate clean tone that sparkles and really cuts through with articulation. What do you think, guys?
It's good to see you getting in touch with your inner metal madman.
Metal Mitch.
Really digging it.
It is so fun. You can't help it, right? You plug in, you got all that thumping bottom end there. Even out of a 2x12, it does all that bottom end. You can't help it.
And I got to ask, with that 2x12, the stage really is rocking. What's the 2x12 loaded with, and how do they get that kind of oomph out of a cabinet that size?
I don't know the answer to that. It probably is Celestians, probably vintage 30s that are in this. Most of their cabinets of this size are loaded with vintage 30s. It's a little deeper cabinet, but I'll tell you what, that tight bottom end is coming from this amp. It really is driving that like that.
I actually got a chance to see them demo this amp at the show, and one of the things that's cool about it, with the amount of gain that he has right now, there's very little background hiss. Like normally to have that much gain, it'll be a and it's great sounding amp. Great demo, dude.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So that gets us to another super exciting piece of new gear. This is the brand new MXR Uni-Vibe. And gosh, I had a lot of fun playing this pedal. The Uni-Vibe is such a classic sound for the rock guitar player. And what's neat, as we kind of talk about in the video, it's smaller, but it's just as cool, and perhaps maybe even cooler than the original unit. And it's about 1/10 of the price of the vintage one on eBay. And it actually, one of the great things about them, just because of the manufacturing, and I talk about this in the video, is really consistent. And it's a brilliant pedal. I had a lot of fun. So let's go to the video.
So this is the brand new MXR Uni-Vibe. And this is a super exciting pedal because it takes the classic sound of Jimi Hendrix's giant Uni-Vibe that he made famous at Woodstock and puts it in a much more pedalboard friendly format. What's cool about it is on the face, you've just got a little push button that toggles between vibe and chorus mode. You get a red light when it goes in vibe mode, no light when it's in chorus. You've got level, speed, and depth controls. And the level control is particularly helpful because when you step on a phase canceling device like a Uni-Vibe, your signal has a tendency to appear and disappear. So being able to boost the overall level of the effect when you step on it helps it be more pronounced. Now there's kind of a cool story behind this pedal. Bobby Cedro is the guy who designed this for MXR. And back when he was 15, a few years ago, he went and bought a guitar from a buddy. And the guy had something in a sack and he said, you know, I've got this thing. I don't really need it anymore. You can have it. So the photo you're about to see is actually of the vintage Uni-Vibe that Bobby used for this circuit and literally went through and measured all the various elements of the circuit and created this particular pedal. What's neat about this is that it utilizes FET technology, which means the sound of the pedal in terms of production and you're being able to use it from night to night is completely consistent. All right, the first demo you're going to hear is using the pedal in vibe mode. All right, now we're going to get a chance to hear it in chorus mode. So for this last demo, I went back to the vibe setting and also added an MXR carbon copy delay. Really something kind of like an intro where the vibe is subtle, but you can still kind of hear it on the longer chords. Really neat tone. For more information about the MXR Uni-Vibe, please visit Sweetwater, Premier Guitar, or GearTunes.com. Cheers.
Wow, Doug, that is just gorgeous. I mean, that pedal sounds incredible. Of course, the playing is incredible too, man. You're like channeling that inner passion and bringing it out and all that stuff. But wow, what a cool thing! I mean, tell us more. I mean, I want to know more about this pedal. Like, I've got to get one.
Well, and you know that whole kind of there are two players that I've been really listening to a lot. John Mayer and Joe Bonamassa. So like in that first demo, I'm kind of channeling, if you will, that kind of thing that he gets when he's playing those ballads. I was like, if I were going to write a Joe Bonamassa using a ballad using a Uni-Vibe, this is what I would play. And the Dunlop guys were really clear, like, hey, look, don't bury this thing under a bunch of other effects. Because the first thing I thought, I'll put on a fuzz face and a wah-wah and the whammy bar. And they're like, no, really give people the effect. And so I kind of went, okay. And it really allowed me to just kind of embellish everything that I could, playing the part around the pedal as opposed to using the pedal to kind of create the part. And there's one thing I forgot to mention. This right here is the light that tells you about the speed that the thing's running at. So what's really convenient when you're on stage, you can tell the speed of your
How is that? Nice. You don't even need a pedal.
Don't even need a pedal. So
I got to ask you, and the Uni-Vibe, obviously you're talking about a pedal where it's got a big legacy.
Yes.
Big shoes to fill. How do you think it did, and does it have that sort of gut level
I think that first demo, that intimate experience of being able to write a part, because that's really, of all the demos that it's the closest to an actual song. I was just like, I just allowed myself in the demo space to go, I'm just going to make a composition. All these are little compositions, but that one is actually kind of there's 3 parts, and then there's a little ending as well. So it is that thing that just because of the phasing, the cancellation, that beautiful thing that it does to the notes and the depth, I mean, the clarity of the way the amp and the guitar and the pedal were talking to one another, it is a kind of, sorry for saying this, it is a transcendental experience, but it really, something happens that the depth of that sound, it is just a very unique circuit, and they just did a great job with it.
Does it play well with both single coils and humbuckers?
Yeah, yeah.
Very nice.
Cool.
Good job.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank
Good job.
you.
Good job.
Cheers.
So one of the things I love at Winter NAMM is that there are so many different manufacturers, and so you can, I mean, any variety of instrument that you're interested in, there's something there. And I studied a little bit of classical guitar, so I always look forward to going to the Cordoba booth. This year they had some incredible stuff there. They had a Hauser guitar that was a sister to Segovia's guitar, which if you're into classical guitar, that is amazing, and they're making duplicates of that. They also have a vintage Torres that they're making duplicates of. But the one that really caught my eye is the new version of the C10. Now, they've had the C10 nylon string guitar out for a while. The one they introduced this year is a C10 Crossover, and it's a new nylon string that's aimed at steel string and electric players. Let's check out the video. This is the Cordoba C10 Crossover nylon string guitar. Now this is like a standard classical guitar, but it's set up to appeal more to a steel string player or someone who's used to an electric guitar. This guitar features a solid rosewood back and sides, it has a solid spruce top, and a hand-carved mahogany neck. The guitar features premium Cordoba tuners. Those are silver with a black knob on those. It has a rosewood bridge, and there's a rosewood inlay around the sound hole that's based on a 1920s design. Now what sets the Crossover apart from the standard C10 is the neck. The neck is actually a C shape, whereas most classical guitars are a bigger U shape. It's also a narrower neck. It's 48 millimeters as opposed to a standard classical guitar, which is 52 millimeters. Now that 4 millimeters may not seem like much, but when you have it in your hand, it's really a big difference. This guitar has all the tone of a classical guitar, yet it's set up to make it easier to play pop music, to play jazz music, if you're doing jazz chords. The shallow neck makes it really easy to grab those complex chord shapes, and if you're used to playing with your hand up on the neck as opposed to in the middle of the neck like a classical player, it's also much more comfortable. Whether you're playing chords or you're doing more lead type lines, the action is very low, so it's a comfortable guitar to play on, and they've even included side dots on the neck. Classical guitars don't typically have those. Typically they'll just have a marker at the 12th fret, but this one has one at the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the 12th, as you'd find with a steel string or an electric. If you're looking for a guitar to bring the nylon string sound into your music, the Cordoba C10 Crossover is a great choice. You'll instantly be able to sit down and feel comfortable with this guitar.
Nice job there, Mitch.
Thank you. That guitar is so fun to play. You know, as a nylon string player, you get used to that classical feel, but when you grab a neck like that, you can just play things that you never would play on a classical guitar. You know, it takes you more in that jazz realm, like that last piece I was playing there. It really feels comfortable to play that style of music on a guitar like that.
You play that exceptionally well.
Oh, you're too kind. Thank you very much for saying so.
Really beautiful.
You bring out the tender side in me, Mitch.
Well, I didn't mean to put tears in your eyes.
Speaking of the tender side, that gets us to cable ties.
What a segue. That
Thank
was
you very
awesome.
much. We want to give a big shout out to our friends at Planet Waves. Managing cables is a righteous pain. And they came up with these very cool cable ties. They basically have a little hook on one side. There we go. Stand on end. Of course, you're not going to. There you go. Well, you might be able to see that just the same if I kind of go like that. There we go. Look at that fancy cable tie. So the thing about them is you basically wrap them around one or more cables, and they kind of enable you to kind of clean up that mess in your stage or your studio. And I've been using these for a number of years. They're really great products, and we knew that we were going to have a little bit of cable mess here. And they've been a huge help on this event, and they were kind enough to send out a nice big box, of which I get to maybe take the remnants home.
I know, I get it.
All right, here you go.
I've got a bunch of them in my studio too, and I love those things.
Yeah.
They just pop right on, pop right off. They're so fast,
Yeah.
but they hold all the cables exactly where they're supposed to be. So very cool. We appreciate Planet Waves coming through for those.
Yes.
And speaking of special thanks,
Yes.
we also have to thank Roland.
Yes.
They provided a VR50 switcher that we're using to do all the technical stuff behind the scenes that I know nothing about. I'm a guitar player. So all that technical stuff that's happening behind the scenes is courtesy of Roland and that VR50 switcher that they provided. Very cool piece of gear that lets all this stuff happen.
Really cool. Thank you, guys.
Very nice. All right, speaking of cool pieces of gear, another cool segue.
There
right?
you go.
Yeah. We're on a roll here now. That's
There you go,
for
buddy.
sure. That's sure. Proco Fat Rat, John Levy.
Thanks, Mitch. The Proco Fat Rat is the latest iteration in a lineage of pedals that dates back to 1978. The first Rat pedal, released in 1978, started a long legacy, and the Rat in various iterations has been used by countless guitarists. It's one of those perennial favorites. And for 2014, the Fat Rat got a very splashy debut at NAMM show. To go ahead and give you a little bit of a feel for what this pedal offers, it's got both the original Rat sound as well as a new clipping circuit that's a MOSFET powered circuit. I'm going to go ahead and give you the sort of initial version of the Rat pedal. You can see from the overhead mic, from the overhead camera, there are two toggle switches. One of them is labeled thick and stock. The other is labeled MOSFET and stock. In the down position, both of these are actually the stock, sort of original Rat pedal sound. I'll go ahead and start with that and then work our way through the other features. We're going to go to the thick sound. You'll see it goes ahead and fattens up the sound quite a bit. I'm going to go back to the toggle here on the right side of the unit. It actually selects between the stock version, or what was the original Rat sound, and the MOSFET circuit. Going back to all stock for this particular part of the demo. We're going to go now into the MOSFET clipping circuit. I'm going to go return to all stock for the moment, just to give you a little bit of a feel for how the distortion goes from thick and heavy to really crazy as you go ahead and crank it up. It gets pretty distorted, as the Rat is known for and as it has earned legions of fans over the last 30 years. By the way, this Fat Rat pedal, it does go ahead and pay homage to the earlier versions. It's got the matte black finish, white graphics. I kind of like it. It's sort of a pleasantly menacing type of look. It's in a metal case that it's got to be bulletproof, or at least possibly bomb-proof. And I think it's a pretty fitting new addition to the Rat pedal legacy. Guys, what do you think?
I think it sounds incredible. I had a chance to check it out at the show. They gave me a demo of that, and they actually had a display where they had kind of the whole family of Rat pedals that they come out with, and so many tones there. And this pedal brings a number of those tones right there in one box, which is so cool. You can get the vintage Rat thing, which of course everybody knows and loves, and then you can update it, get that MOSFET tone. So I think it's rocking.
That's
The
really
Rat
cool.
family, that's one way of putting it.
The Rat family, yeah.
The pack of rats.
The Rat pack.
So one of the other things that is really cool about this pedal is there's this band, they sold a few records called Fall Out Boy, and Joe Troman was actually really involved in the development of this pedal. So it's, I don't think being released officially as a signature pedal under his name, at least that's to my limited knowledge of such things, other than the fact that he was really involved in the development of this pedal. So it's neat that, you know, somebody who has obviously played as many amps and as many gigs and as many pedals as Joe has is like, hey, I want to do something with this circuit and tweak it a little bit for what I'm doing now, which is really exciting.
And I like the fact that they've gone ahead and tried to retain, you know, they've gone ahead and kept the original thing that made the Rat so lovable. You lovable Rat, you. While at the same time are offering some other tonal options for players to experiment with.
It's really cool.
That's great. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
My
Good
pleasure.
demo. All right. Next up, we're going to step back into Acousticville. Acoustic Land?
Villand.
There, something like that. We've got another guitar from Gibson Acoustic that comes out of Bozeman, Montana. The luthiers up there are so talented. They're doing great things. What we've got is the new J-29 Rosewood. Now, this is a slope-shouldered dreadnought, lots of resonant, lots of projection. Check it out in the video. This is the J-29 Rosewood from Gibson. It's a new model for 2014 that features a solid rosewood back and sides, a solid spruce top, and a mahogany neck. The J-29 is based on traditional J-45 body style, which means that it's a slope-shouldered dreadnought. That gives it a lot of punch and a lot of power, especially when combined with the X bracing inside that actually comes from a 1930s style guitar. As I mentioned, the neck is mahogany. It has a slight V shape to it, so it's very comfortable whether you put your thumb behind or you wrap your thumb around. It's narrow enough that you can get your thumb all the way around to play those bass notes. So if you like to use your thumb when you're chording, this is a guitar that makes it easy to do that. It features an advanced jumbo-style headstock with Grover tuners. The neck joins at the 14th fret, which makes it easy to access those higher frets. You can get your hand right up there without having to have a cutaway. The neck is attached using a compound dovetail design. That gives it a good rigidity, good transfer of resonance, and that's enhanced by the use of high glue for attaching all of the wooden elements. The electronics in the J-29 are an LR Baggs element system. The volume control is right here inside the sound hole, and it's a nice natural sounding electronic system. The finish on the J-29 is a hand-sprayed nitrocellulose lacquer. It smells great when you take it out of the case. It has that new guitar smell, and it feels really good under your hand. It'll wear in nicely as you're playing the guitar. If you're looking for a great sounding punchy dreadnought style guitar with a really natural sounding electronic system, the J-29 from Gibson is a great choice. That's an awesome guitar. And yet another acoustic guitar that I just had a blast playing. I just love guitars that when you pick them up, they just resonate. It's like playing a wooden bell. Not that a wooden bell would sound all that great, but with strings on it, a wooden bell sounds incredible, right?
It would be a bell-like tone.
A bell-like tone. Thank you very much.
And it smells great.
And it smells great because of that nitrocellulose lacquer. But you know, that's just, and that's kind of funny. But you know, you grab that lacquer neck, and as you play that, that lacquer warms up and it breaks into the way your hand plays on it. It really is awesome. The guitar feels like it's been played in very shortly after you pick it up and start working it. So yeah, I hate to let that one go from my. It's been living in my office for about a week, and Yeah, that's when I hate to see you go back down the road.
How
But
many guitars do you own?
not enough.
That's the right answer.
Moving right along.
The right answer.
Moving right along. So the next product is one that I had a chance to check out actually a year ago at NAMM. They brought me in to see a prototype of this, and I gave them a few comments. So the whole product is my idea, basically.
That's what they said, actually.
Yeah, no, what they said is, yeah, we showed it to him, and he was kind of stupid, so we decided to do it our way.
And except you didn't sign the NDA, so they. No, sorry, kidding.
Yeah,
All right, moving right along.
Moving right along. We'll stop that too. No, this is a very cool product. I got a chance to see a preview of it last year. It came out this year. Doug wrestled it from my hands.
I literally did. I kind of snuck it.
Yeah, I want to do that one.
No,
This one's mine. So what are we talking about?
So we're talking about the 2-Notes Torpedo Reload. It is a reamp. It's a load box. It is a built-in power amp, and it is one of the coolest, most exciting pieces of technology that has come out, in my opinion, in a long time. Agreed?
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Let's watch the video.
Boom.
The 2-Notes Torpedo Reload is a tremendously powerful piece of technology that's going to be very helpful to a huge number of guitar players. 5 things I think you're going to want to know about it. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife of solutions to the common challenges that we guitar players face. If you've only been playing for a year, you're going to soon discover like getting the sound of your amplifier into a recording studio and capturing that sound easily, huge challenge. The other thing is, as you move on to the concert stage, playing clubs, venues of any size, getting the amp to the right level means that sometimes you're just too loud for the venue. And this enables us to solve a number of those key challenges. The first key feature we want to highlight is the reamping functionality. The guitar goes into the front end of the Reload, goes out into Pro Tools, comes back into the Reload, which in turn sends the input to the Marshall here. I'm coming out of the speaker out, utilizing the load box functionality of the Torpedo, and then going back into Pro Tools where I'm using the Wall of Sound plugin from 2-Notes, so I can basically take my Marshall tone and run into a huge range of cabinets and speakers. That means that I can record it the right level with the power amp section of the Marshall, but I can keep the volume down as I'm in the studio, which means I can record with this thing at the perfect spot, day or night, regardless of the volume coming out of my monitors from Pro Tools. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate why this is so valuable. When we bring up just the amp on its own, it sounds fine. We've kind of got the treble here at high noon. But when we start adding in the drums, you begin to hear the need to bring in just a little bit more treble. And as opposed to doing it after the fact in Pro Tools, it's awesome to be able to use the actual circuitry in the amplifier to dial the amp in to the sweet spot. Let's take a listen. Another great function this unit has is something called match. It enables you to ensure that when you're reamping, the input coming from Pro Tools or whatever DAW you're using is identical to the actual input coming from your guitar, so you're making sure that your amplifier is getting the proper level. Super easy to use. You just kind of get these meters to line up. Check it out. The Reload also has 2 other really great functions that I think you're going to want to know about. First of all, it has a built-in 100-watt power amp. So on the JVM, I want to get into the zone. If I'm just coming out of the amp into the cabinet, super loud to get some of those sounds where I want them. Because this unit has a 100-watt power amp built into it, I can come out of the speaker output of the JVM, go into the load box function on the back of the unit, load box in, and because it has a 100-watt power amp, I can scale the volume to whisper quiet or blaringly loud, which again in the studio is super helpful if I want to mic the cabinet but don't want to scare the neighbors, or in particular in a live setting where I don't want to get the sound man basically turning my fader off because I'm too loud on stage. Now there's one other thing that makes this super, super cool. Most heads and cabinets want to have a specific matching between the impedance. This head likes to run at 16 ohms. This cabinet can run at either 4 or 16. And ideally, I want to have them both running at 16. On the back of the Reload, you have the ability to change the output impedance so you can use this head with virtually any cabinet. Super cool. All right, for the demos, I'm basically just running into the front end of the JVM, out into the Reload using the load box functionality, out into Pro Tools, and I'm using the Wall of Sound plugin to be able to create the perfect speaker cabinet and speaker combination for the demos. First off, you're going to hear something nice and clean, then something kind of in the Uni-Vibe, and then something a little bit more shreddy. So that is the 2 Notes Torpedo Reload. For more information, please visit Sweetwater, Premier Guitar, or GearTunes.com. Cheers.
So we wanted to give you kind of a close-up shot of the Torpedo Reload here for a quick second. Again, all the controls that you saw in there. Really neat piece of technology. I was really excited to be able to demo that.
Looked like you had a great time with it in the studio. With a Swiss Army knife like this, I got to ask, does it do all of those things really well?
It does them exceptionally well. Because I'm familiar with the brand already and the quality of their products, when I saw what it was, I knew how well it was going to do it, and it absolutely did not disappoint.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, to wrap up our show, we're going to go ahead and go back to Mitch Gallagher. Mitch, you've got something exciting in your hands from Fishman. Tell us more.
I get to do the final demo here today. So what we're going to talk about today is a new type of pickup from Fishman. Now Fishman's of course known for their acoustic pickups, and they had an interesting technology that came out a couple of years ago where they were able to image the sound of guitars, load them into the electronics, and have your acoustics sound like different acoustic guitars or like a specific acoustic guitar you wanted it to. Very cool, very versatile technology. Now what they've done is they've sort of taken that idea and brought it to the electric guitar world, but they've done more than that. So what I have here is I have a Les Paul that Fishman supplied to us loaded with 2 of their humbucking pickups. Single coils are also available. But these aren't your standard pickups. The way these work is instead of having coils of wire that are wrapped around magnets, these actually have, they're sort of like printed circuit boards, and they have coils that are sort of etched into those printed circuit boards, and they stack those up to create basically the same effect as you'd have using a coil of wire around a magnet, but it's a little different technology, and the result is that they're totally noiseless. Whether you're playing a humbucker or whether you're playing a single coil, no noise comes out of these. And the pickups themselves are actually designed to be neutral. They're designed to be transparent and neutral. They don't have a lot of color themselves. You plug into the guitar, and there's electronics inside that sort of have the image of different pickups in there. So let me show you what I mean. In the bridge pickup here, we've got a humbucker, and with the tone control pushed in, we get a PAF style tone. When we pull up on the tone control, we get a totally different image, and that's of a more hot rodded style humbucking pickup. You can hear that lower mid-range comes up, the output jumps up a little bit, more again like a hot-rodded humbucker that you might have in the bridge position on your guitar. So right out of the box, with this guitar, we have 2 different tones that are available from that bridge pickup. They're both stellar tones, and the high end is very, very similar to what you hear from a real PAF. A PAF was really designed to be a humbucking tone after the sound of a P90. And this keeps that chiming sort of bright top end that you really get out of a true PAF, and then when you switch it into that higher gain, that hot-rodded mode, you get that thicker, fatter sound. When we go to the neck pickup in this particular case, we've got a humbucker again, and in this case, when we have the tone control for the neck pickup down, we're getting a PAF style tone again. It's a nice thick tone, a lot of sustain, a lot of dynamics there, and it has that top end that you associate with a PAF. Now when we pull the switch up, it actually goes the other direction. We don't get a hot rodded tone here, we get what they call a chiming tone. So a lot more top end, I shouldn't say that. There's a bit more top end, but what they've really done is brought back the lower mid-range and the bottom end, so it opens that sound up. That top end really cuts through, makes it seem like there's more top end, when really we've kind of dished the rest of it out. So it's a nice complementary tone to that true PAF sound that we have when the tone control is pushed in. So we have 2 sounds here, 2 sounds here. In the middle position, we have all those different combinations we can explore. So I think that gives you a total of something like 8 sounds out of a Les Paul with just those 2 pickups installed. Now the same thing happens if you have, say, a Strat style guitar and you've got 3 single coils in it. Each of those single coils can have 2 different sounds, and you can load those images up by pulling up on the switches. And so with a Stratocaster style guitar, you get a ton of different tonal variations, totally noiseless. Whether you're playing with high gain or you're playing a clean tone, hum, buzz, noise, none of that's going to be an issue. So let me show you what it sounds like when we switch over to a dirtier sound. I'm going to change to channel 2 on my amplifier here. You can still hear those tonal differences with these pickups. I'm going to go back to the bridge pickup, push this into more of our true PAF sound. We'll pull up to get that hot rodded sound. That That's a thick, chunky tone, really drives the amp nicely. So if you're in the studio, you need a cleaner rhythm type tone, then you want a fatter lead tone, you're going into a little heavier sound, being able to switch those tones by just pulling up on that switch really makes a difference. And the same thing when we go to the neck pickup. We can start with that in, we have our true PAF sound. Pull up, we get a little thinner sound, a little more scooped, and more open top end. Another cool thing about these pickups is, because they're not designed with a coil of wire, as you turn down the volume control, you don't lose any tone, you don't lose that sparkle. So we'll go back to our bridge pickup, we'll put it back into PAF mode, roll the volume control back. All that top end is still there, the tone hasn't changed a bit, all we've done is change the output level. I really like that feature in these pickups. These are very cool pickups, a new technology. You charge them using USB, there's just a little port on the back that you plug into. It takes about an hour to charge it, and you get 100 hours of battery life from a single charge, so there's no worries about this thing going dead on stage or in the studio. Really a cool technology from Fishman, and I think it sounds great, very authentic. What do you guys think?
Well, I can vouch for the fact that these pickups were one of the most talked about items in NAMM. And having heard your description of it, I can understand why. It's, hats off to Fishman for going ahead and doing something very different and very versatile for guitarists.
Right, absolutely. Well, that brings us to the end of Guitars and Gear Live. We've had a blast putting this on, bringing a taste of the NAMM show, and I got to admit it, just playing with the 25 products and getting to spend some time with them, man, what a treat for us, and I hope you enjoyed that as well. We want to thank Roland for the VR50, Planet Waves for the cable ties, all the manufacturers that supplied all these products. Some of these are one-of-a-kind products. These are the example of those products. They're not on the market yet, so for them to come through and provide them to us is such a cool thing. Having you guys here has been a treat. Doug?
Mitch.
Always a pleasure. John?
Hey, Mitch, thanks to you and the entire Sweetwater team for going and putting this together.
Absolutely. All of our audio staff, our visual staff, those guys work their butts off here to make this whole thing work. Mike Ross is our producer, did a great job. We've got all kinds of help. And so a show like this takes a lot of people to put together, and then the three of us just stand here and
get to play guitar.
Get to play guitar. So hats off to everybody who did all that work behind the scenes. And hats off to you, and thanks to you for watching this presentation. We hope we'll be able to bring you more of these in the future. We've had a lot of fun. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. We'll see you soon.